Hi everyone, Carter Krishnair for Beyond the 90. I got a late question. We got a late question in the subscriber mailbag about writing about soccer and what someone would have to do from going from being someone who sits in a supporters section at a match to writing, as a writer, as a journalist. Interesting question. Something I've had experience with and I've thought about over the course of the last 20 years. And should mention, if you're an aspiring writer, we had an intake of college interns a year ago, working with their universities to get them credit, and that's something we do. It is something we are part of those programs, and we have done that regularly in the past at Beyond the 90, and other websites do that as well. So if you're in a J school somewhere, or you you love soccer, you're involved with a college team, a high school team, an academy team in soccer, and you're an aspiring soccer writer, check us out and send me an email at kartik.krishnaiyer, first name dot last name, at beyondthe90.net. With that out of the way, what does it take to do this? Because it's something I did, but admittedly a long time ago. And it's also something in launching this site, we were getting kind of back to basics with this, even though I had, when we launched this site, 16, 17 years into the business of, I'm just doing rough math in my head. But so let's talk about this site first, Beyond the 90. So Beyond the 90, I launched, intending it to be a site where I could kind of channel my passions about the lower division setup in England, the Bundesliga, which is my favorite league in the world, and then cover some teams locally in Florida, lower division teams, the Rowdies and Miami FC, which we've continued to do, and then also local teams in NPSL and USL League 2, and NISA, Club de Leon and NISA. And but the focus was not going to be lower division soccer in the United States, right? That was going to be just worry about that with Florida. But wanted to cover the French league also, actually. Had a Ligue 1 writer initially when we launched. But the market dictates where we went, right? Those of you who've subscribed, and this is the wonderful thing about Substack and the relationship you have with subscribers on Substack. They really kind of got us focused and got Jonathan Starling and myself and the rest of the team here at Beyond the 90 saying, okay, we are really focused on the USL Championship, USL League 1, USL League 2, and then also NISA, NPSL, now League for Clubs as well. Like I said, I obviously have worked extensively in front offices of both teams and leagues, in multiple teams and multiple leagues at the lower division level. So this is in my wheelhouse, but it wasn't my passion for coverage. But you guys kind of put us in, directed us in the right place. It is the right place. It is absolutely the right place to be. So that's the first thing. You don't always get to cover what you set out to cover, right? Quite frankly, when I would write about the Bundesliga on here, get the open rate on the emails was like 10%. Write about the USL Championship, it's like 50%. So, those are the things that you notice with metrics. And that's the cool thing now about analytics and metrics that we didn't always have when I started out with this. So, sometimes you were just kind of throwing things against the wall. So how did I make the transition, right? I mentioned before, I was a government relations political consultant who was in soccer supporters groups, right? So I was standing in those supporters sections. Although I had been divorced from the sport for a couple of years because we had lost the Tampa Bay Mutiny and the Fort Lauderdale team and Miami Fusion, right? But they were based in Fort Lauderdale. Think of them as a Fort Lauderdale team. We lost those two teams, right? The MLS had contracted, the MLS, don't ever do that. My fault. MLS had contracted those two teams. And so I was in a position where I was without local football, local soccer, even kind of the U.S., the PDL teams at the time. NPSL was not in Florida for the first 8 or 9 seasons that they. I'm wearing an NPSL playoff shirt from our Sunshine Conference here in Florida back in 2018. But we didn't have a club in Florida in the NPSL until Jacksonville United joined, I want to say in 2010 or 2011. So, in fact, we had professional lower division soccer back in Florida before NPSL got here. And we, the PDL teams, which is now USL League Two, were scattered and often didn't stay in business for very long. There was one team that I created kind of a connection with, which was the Central Florida team that played various times in Lake Mary and Winter Park, called the Crays, and they won the national championship in PDL one year. I had a lot of good young players. But so what became the key for me? Getting out to local matches. Getting out, doesn't matter how low the level is. How low, okay? Academies, high school, youth soccer, PDL in those days, now USL League Two, UPSL, which I have to admit I've kind of neglected. I can't cover everything. So, but UPSL is a great place to go out, develop contacts, and then obviously all the other leagues that we cover here, NISA, USL League One, USL Championship. You develop relationships then with the game. You cultivate sources. Like every American city, every American town even now has a club playing men's football, men's soccer at a decent level. Most have women's teams too, and WPSL is filling out the map. WPSL Pro, as many of you saw, launched last week. They're filling out the map. So there is somewhere to go, and that allows you to cultivate sources. That allows you to meet people at this level, at the level in the United States, lower division soccer. You develop personal relationships. You develop personal friendships. Like so many of my friends have come out of lower division soccer in the United States. Yes, I have a lot of long-term friends from college. Not really many from high school left, but college, lots from the University of Florida that I still talk to, and then people that became friendly with politically or just working in and around Tallahassee. But I would say about half my friends, half the people I talk to regularly, I met through lower division soccer in the United States, whether it was as a journalist or whether it was as a member of a front office. And so it's a wonderful place to meet people too and develop sources. Now, here's the thing, I would say you have to be humble. You have to assume that whoever you're talking to, whoever you meet, knows more than you. They've worked in the business. They've coached teams. They've developed players. They have run ticketing and sales. They may not know more than you about the game, but just assume they do. Listen, learn, make some points, but cultivate the relationship. Be very respectful, be deferential. And then you develop those friendships. You develop that. I think one of the things we have to understand is that this is a bit of a grind if you're a coach or if you're a referee in the United States. Then our colleague Lawrence Dockery is a very good referee, by the way. But there's a grind. You go, you do your coach trainings, you coaches courses, you do your referee courses. I've sat in on some of them. Quite frankly, I'm a very accountable person, personally. Quite frankly, I couldn't make it through those courses because there was just, you have to be really kind of focused on it. And, I've sat in on lower level courses, but I'm saying I don't know that I would have had the patience or the discipline to get a USSF A license or a pro license or UEFA, equivalent UEFA license. So, you have to respect. Because I see a lot of commentary where people say, "Oh, the coach is an idiot," blah blah blah. Okay, there is a room for opinion. There is also a room to understand. Coaches have to go through a rigid training to get where they get. Referees have to go through a rigid training to get where they get. Now, sometimes the matches change. The sport is constantly changing. This is why the quality of coaches, the quality of referees change. Some guys who were good coaches 5 years ago are not good coaches anymore, quite frankly, at whatever level they're at. If you want to cover a team properly, you got to go to training. You can't just turn up match day. You have to have some context as to why guys are getting selected. You have to have some context, or guys or girls if it's a women's team. You have to have some kind of context over the relationships, the locker room dynamics, how they interact with their teammates, and you get that in training. And when I was a press officer for individual clubs, quite frankly, I kind of realized who my ace reporters were based on who was showing up at training. And sometimes the local beat writer for the newspaper wasn't showing up at training regularly, but the blogger who was in college was. And guess what? My personal view then as a press officer was like, hey, that kid really gets it, really understands it. Let's help them out. Let's actually even maybe sometimes feed them a story. So it's so different than watching games on television. And look, if you want to cover, I know there are people who say, I don't want to waste my time with MLS or USL or whatever. I'm into the Premier League. I'm into the Bundesliga. Okay. I think you should focus on local and get to make those sources, cultivate those relationships. But if you want to write about Europe or the USMNT or USWNT, which is also kind of like covering Europe because they're not a club, they don't have training sessions, they're not a week to week thing. I think you have to then go to supporters groups. You have to know, if it's the men's national team, you have to know the AO chapter in your town. You need to know the leaders of the AO chapter. Get to know them. Develop a relationship with them. Now, there was horrible politics. I mean, I at one time was involved in AO, so and there were splits, and yeah. But just get to know. If you're writing about it, you don't have to get involved in that. You just get to know. Okay, this chapter's split. This chapter's more focused on the women's team. Let's talk to them. Get to know the supporters groups for your local MLS, USL, NISA, NPSL, League for Clubs club as well. Because, and NWSL. And I think that's really important. Another thing is you need to go to conferences. You need to, if there's a referee convention, see if you can attend. If there is a coaches convention has always been, that's been my go-to, and I've neglected it. I've dropped the ball since COVID. My last coaches convention was 2020 in Baltimore. I used to go every year before that. Baltimore, Philly several times, Kansas City, Indy, St. Louis, Baltimore several times, multiple times in Baltimore. I think I've been to 3 coaches conventions in Philly. I think I've been to 3 in Baltimore. I've been to one in St. Louis, one in Indy, one in Kansas City, one in did I go to a coaches convention in Chicago? Maybe. Yeah, so you have to go to these events. I really respect the fact that Dan Vaughn, Dan Creel, protagonists, they've been going. When I dropped the ball, I started dropping the ball COVID, right? I didn't go to this stuff. I dropped a lot of balls during COVID. This is again a little bit of self-reflection. So as a result, you almost have to redevelop your connections to people, redevelop some of your sources, be back out and about, because I had kind of withdrawn for 2 years and was writing about history, which I'm still doing, but I'm doing both at the same time. No source is too small. No source is ever too small. So someone you might think they're small time or small potatoes. You wouldn't believe how much people know in this game. So if someone is a player agent, cultivate them. If someone happens to have some passing knowledge of investors, cultivate them. Be humble. Listen to them. Don't just assume, this guy's just, he's like third on the sponsorship sales team at some club. Talk to them. And then this is a shameless plug, shameless pitch. I think the board may appreciate this at North American Soccer Reporters. If you want to write about soccer, join NASR. It's a great resource. I'm a former vice president of NASR, national vice president, or national. It's U.S. and Canada. North American, continental vice president. It's a great experience. You want to be involved in that. So, and it gives you relationships. It helps you develop relationships with other reporters. So yeah, I'm here to help. If anyone wants to get into this and wants to privately message me or privately contact me, my email address, kartik.krishnaiyer@beyondthe90.net. You can hit me up on Substack, private message. You can hit me up on, I'm really not on social media anymore. That's another thing. Social media is important, but social media is not the game, right? I think that there are a lot of people who have made this mistake, quite frankly, who think what they see on Twitter is what matters. And that's just one component of it. Like, just, cultivate things on a person-to-person basis.